Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Primatech Files. I'm Lilith.
And I'm Ricky.
Up for discussion today is episode 2 of the first season, Don't Look Back. Ricky has the synopsis for you, and then we can jump in with our recap, review, and discussion, I guess.
Okay, so Don't Look Back. Peter confronts Nathan about what happened in the alley. Hiro explores New York and finds a comic book detailing his experiences before making an awful discovery. Nikki and Micah are preparing to run when she discovers she had unexpected assistance. Mohinder meets a friend of his late father and begins uncovering clues. Claire seeks to avoid the attention for her heroics, and her lost videotape turns up in a most unexpected place. Finally, Matt Parkman begins to hear thoughts, which quickly make him both a hero and a suspect.
Yeah, lots of stuff happened in this episode.
Yeah.
It felt a little jumbled, but like it almost felt kind of like what was going on with the original pilot. Like there was lots to go on and lots to get excited about.
I think it felt like, especially the Matt Parkman, especially his bit. If you've watched the unaired pilot, they kind of just completely wrote him out of the first episode of the actual shown first pilot, and they just kind of rushed him into this one, which, you know, that kind of made everything it pushed kind of things a bit back a bit, because they had to introduce this new character and introduce his story where he was going from.
Like I said, I like the original unaired pilot so much that like when I watch the regular pilot, sometimes I'm like, wait, second episode. And his whole storyline gets totally retweaked because of it. But I think I actually like the new storyline with Tender FBI. And Clea DuVal, who was just the bee's knees in 2006 appearance. I totally forgot about this lady. Like, I haven't seen her since.
She was only in it for like a couple of episodes. I really can't remember, but yeah, she was everywhere around about that time, wasn't she? Because she had like
movie with Elijah Wood and Jon Stewart, that weird, creepy alien movie.
The Faculty, I think it was. Yeah,
that's what I remember her from, and I was just like, wait, what? Whatever happened to her? I'll have to Google that after we're done. But yeah, like I said, it was tons happening. But of course, I guess the front and center story would have to be Hiro story.
Yeah.
He's in the future.
I like the way that whole thing played out. Like you thought it was like normal present day until the very end, and you got the big reveal. But yeah, I really like that whole storyline about him. But then I'm a Hiro fan, so.
Me too, but no, like they wanted it to be that though. Definitely, I think I have an unpopular opinion. Don't shoot me.
Scandalous.
I hate the Sanders family. They are so insufferable.
I kind of to a certain extent agree. Like everyone's story kind of tracks like during the episode, and you kind of see like evolution. But hers starts off as like the biggest mystery. Like she's kind of a weird version of Harrison Wells. Like you've kind of got this mystery behind her, but you just don't really care about it for the most part. The only good thing about the Sanders family is what? Micah, who's only in it for a little bit. And I quite like DL, you know, for as little as he was in it. But I think, it's just Ali Lata. The character, not.
Yeah, it's the worst superpower ever.
Yeah, it's What it was just like super strength, but through like your split person. Yeah, I think I read somewhere like ages ago that it was based on some kind of Freudian kind of id and super ego type of thing. But yeah, it was just the whole thing is it plays out like it's a mystery, like, you know, she's always blacking out and then finding herself in mysterious places. And then it's like you're trying to figure it out as she's trying to figure it out, but also at the same time, it's like, just get to the meat and bones of the story.
And then, like, yeah, I don't mean to jump ahead further in the story, but like when we finally get to the what's going on with Linderman, you're like, really?
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, that's why, like, in the rewatch, the Sanders family is so insufferable. I actually liked them initially, but the more I rewatch the series, the more they just keep going down and down the list. Also, the same thing kind of happens with the Petrelli family, honestly.
I don't know. When I first watched it, Peter was like, I thought Peter was like kind of great. But now kind of watching it back and like in hindsight, I'm kind of bored of his kind of, well, he's obviously like meant to be the main character. He's meant to be like the main star of it, but he's just kind of mopey the whole time, which isn't.
I said it. I don't care. Don't get me wrong, I love Milo, but like the way that he was written, because he was supposed to be the lead protagonist of the show, but everybody else is so much more interesting. And like his power, he's a sponge. That's basically what Mohinder says later on. He's a sponge. Like, oh, that's an awesome power too.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is about him. I think it's just, he's just kind of a wet blanket. He's just kind of like, you know, there in the background. He's given all these like cool kind of storylines and he's kind of pushed from the start to be the big hero. But it's just the hair, I think, and just the constant playing with it. I think that's the new drinking game. Like every time he brushes it out of his face, you know, shot. And it's a good thing they got rid of it in season 2. But yeah, enough about that.
Yeah, but like we open up with the same shot of Peter on the building again, you know, and I'm like, I remember the first time I was watching it, because they do a lot of repetitiveness in Heroes, and it kind of drives me crazy. Like sometimes how we'll end the show with a scene, and then we'll see that same scene, but like halfway through the next episode instead of starting with it.
I've been going through some of them now, and they do that. It's like a recap, but at the same time, like going in halfway through the episode is really strange.
They had really bad organizational skills, I guess. They're like, oh yeah, they might need a refresher about this. But yeah, it's that. But it is kind of, this particular scene is like the iconic, for like the first 6 episodes. It's kind of like the iconic scene of Peter flying. You know, we see Isaac's sketch of that and all of that. But it's really funny because he wakes up and Nathan's like, you tried to kill yourself. You're crazy. Stop the crazy talk.
And all that kind of stuff plays out in the future as well. Like I've just been watching a couple of the episodes ahead, and yeah, Nathan and just his lies throughout the whole thing, when you know he knows more than he's letting on, is just great, I think, anyway.
Yeah, she definitely gets that from his mama. Then we kind of move over from the Petrellis in New York to Claire and Noah and Odessa. And this is another insufferable part too. But I actually loved Claire originally, because I was a whole lot younger when the show first came out.
Yeah.
This is literally like almost 10 years ago. So I've become a lot more jaded, and I was a cheerleader in high school, so I was just like, yeah, I guess I can relate a little bit. She wants to know who her birth parents are, you know, and of course Noah in his classic fashion is like, are you sure you want to know?
Yeah. Noah, like watching this, and obviously like, because I watch Flash as well, but Noah is like a great, like Harrison Wells is a good comparison for Noah at the moment, in the fact that whenever Harrison Wells from The Flash is talking, there's always like a hidden meaning or like a double speak about it. And that's exactly the same with Noah. Like every time you hear him talking to Claire, at least anyway, there's always something behind it, and there's always like a double meaning. And I kind of started picking up on that from like the first episode, and it kind of works its way through like this.
This episode totally let us know at the end. I think that was one of the other things about this episode. I was like, oh, wow, they're just giving it to us right away. Like, you know, because it's one thing, okay, yeah, he was in the apartment and he's following, you know, Mohinder, but like,
all he wants is his daughter to like just be like, yeah, I've got a superpower, Dad, and he's just waiting for it. That's what it feels like to me anyway.
And I will say that I really did love later on when she did kind of tell him after that thing, but and I don't know, I love their relationship because like yeah, that's his adopted daughter, but he loves her like that's his blood. And I think that was the redeeming quality for Noah.
Yeah, that's the thing that just makes him stand out from like probably the rest of them. The fact that he seems like he's the bad guy when he's away from Claire, but as soon as he's with Claire, he kind of you start to feel more for him and empathize with him as a character.
Like I said, he became my favorite character
Yeah,
over the course of the series. So
I think he's also like the most consistent character throughout the whole thing. Like he's always got a good storyline in my eyes that you kind of like, whereas like Hiro kind of meandered throughout the rest of the seasons, like, and Noah was just straight line throughout the whole thing, and he was just badass because you know he had no powers, but he could kind of handle people.
yeah, I definitely love when we get later down. What is it? Episode 14, The Company Man is definitely one of my favorite episodes. So we get to Hiro, and he's in the subway in Tokyo, and you know, all of a sudden, you know, he wakes up and he's in the middle of Times Square. That was like the coolest little thing ever.
Yeah. And it spawned like from that was like the whole Yatar thing, like it just blew up. Like pretty much in the next couple of episodes you get Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. And I think Yatar at the time was essentially like the second biggest thing whilst Heroes was going on.
He's just like kind of like it's just so funny because he's so happy to be there. He's like, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And then he finds like he's just walking down the street, and then he finds the comic book, it's issue 14th of Knife Wonders, and it's him on the cover. Like, how cool is that?
That's why I think he's the best character. And then like the bit where there's a really strange bit which I think while I was live tweeting it, I brought it up, and also at the time. I'm sure I remember at the time watching it and thinking this is a bit strange, but the whole bit where just after he's given the money to the guy and done a runner, it all of a sudden starts playing like Indian music.
That's Punjabi music. I know.
And it's like it's like a Japanese man running down the street to Indian music in New York. Could you get like more multicultural in your TV program?
I was Mohinder to pop up with the taxi the first time I was watching it when I heard the music. But the other thing too is like I've been to Tokyo a few times, so when he dropped the 2,000 yen, I was like that well, according to then it was like 850, so that was more than enough. Like,
yeah.
Why are you running? You live in New York, you can like literally go change that into anything right now. And then we see another freaking Debbie Downer scene. Isaac and Simone. I really wish they would have went with the original where his hand was cut off and we just didn't have to deal with him. These first couple episodes with him was just awful.
I don't know. Like I think I can't remember if it's this episode or the next one, but I think he's like the first one. Like apart from Hero's essentially the first one who kind of has. No, actually, no. The first call to action for like a superhero or like a hero in this whole entire show is Isaac because of the paintings. And he's the first one who's essentially saying we have to stop what's going to happen. And I kind of find that endearing. And I like looking back in hindsight now, it's just like, well, he was the first one. He's the originator of the whole thing. And I kind of respect him for that. I kind of wish that they hadn't mugged him off like later on in the season.
But he kind of went down a downward spiral after he broke up with Simone and that whole thing. And it was just like, it had to be heroin? Like, really? He couldn't just smoke a little weed? Like, it had to be heroin? The worst thing on the planet? Okay.
But no, I think also because like he's got that whole call to action and this, I can't remember, I think it's this episode, the one where he's essentially pushing her away. Is that this one or next one?
It's the next one because she doesn't believe him. He's trying to get her to...
We'll talk about it then. But yeah, I've got a newfound appreciation for Isaac as a character from this, even though he is just such a downer. But, you know, after the unaired pilot, they kind of obviously had to keep some of the downness about the whole series. But yeah.
Like, I don't know, that relationship to me just never really, like, felt real. I don't know if it's because the actors didn't have chemistry, but I just never believed they were together that long.
Yeah, they didn't have to have been together. Like, they could have just been friends and it would have been exactly the same.
So then we go back to Texas, and Zach is, like, talking to Claire, but, like, she's busy with the quarterback, of course. And then she gets called into the principal. Well, the principal wants her and Jackie to go to the police and the firemen to get for a lineup.
Yeah.
But we don't find that out. That's what it is, but that's what it was.
That whole thing just that whole bit kind of started to make me hate Claire a little bit more. Because the whole first episode is her saying, I don't want to be different. I don't want the attention. And then she's getting all jealous when Jackie's getting the attention. And it just kind of made me...
Teenage girl.
Yeah, I know, right?
Then we go back to Las Vegas with Nikki. And, Michael leaves her that message and she wakes up. And there's that weird shot of the guy with the glass sticking out of his neck. Yeah. I really wanted to see that. I just wanted to see somebody get torn apart. They never showed it the whole time. But so she loses time. She sees what happens on the video. She loses more time. And Micah's like, look, dude, it's been 4 hours. Where the hell are you, Mom? And she's at the airport, of all places.
Yeah. Especially, I don't know. Yeah, it's just it's a totally weird kind of little storyline that is meant to be intriguing. Which probably was at the time, but now looking back on it, it's just like, oh, just get on with it.
Because you know what it is now. You're just like,
yeah.
But then she goes to pick him up, and she pulls her little friend Tina aside, and Tina's like, she tells her kind of what happened, and she goes, "Do you think it's DL?" And then because we don't really know what happened to her husband. Like if you watch the original unaired pilot, you kind of know that he's in prison, but. I mean, you don't know if they changed it from then. So it's just like, he's a mystery too. Like, is he really the bad guy? Is he the one helping Nikki?
And it's like Nikki's got all the kind of other people around her that are kind of the mysteries, like Lindeman's mentioned quite a lot with her and DL throughout the whole thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so she decides she has to run.
Yeah, of course.
So we finally head back to New York, which is my favorite place, next to Tokyo in the Hiro universe. That's where all the action goes down, really.
Yeah.
And so we go back to Papa Sharesh's apartment where Mohinder meets Eden.
And Tom Drake from the comics. Well, he became from the comics afterwards, but yeah. But they always needed to give Mohinder someone to play off, because otherwise it would just be him talking about nothing, really. He'd just be him talking to himself, so... Eden was a nice little addition. I actually quite liked her.
Mohinder walks into the place, and there's like this guy that's a crappy exterminator who obviously works for the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
Because he's got a gun. I mean, I know the roaches and rats are really tough in New York, but I honestly don't think you need a gun for that profession. So, the jig's up, and, Mohinder chases him out into the hallway, and he bumps into Eden, and that whole thing, of course, was set up to the nines, in retrospect.
Yep. But she's such a good character, though.
She is. But yeah, I really like them together. I totally secretly ship them.
Oh, you weren't the big Parkman Mohinder fan.
Oh no! When that happened, when they get Molly, that was the first time I ever /shipped in my whole life. Talk about characters that have chemistry. Those two actors had chemistry.
Yeah, and it was the whole situation as well. Like he was essentially getting to know his father again through her, whether or not most of the stuff that she's telling is the truth, but still, yeah.
Well, every good lie has a kernel of truth to it. So.
Exactly.
And then we go back to Odessa. I think the episode should have focused on Hiro and Mohinder, and it would have kind of flowed a little better. But we had so much to get to in this series, in the first 6 episodes, so much. So yeah, I think that's one of my only little complaints really about that. But yeah, we go back and the police pick out, they tell him, hey, a cheerleader saved a guy. I don't know why she wouldn't want to. Claire's debating it before she can really thoroughly debate it. Jackie's like, it was me.
And then Claire gives her the death stare.
Oh, but it's such perfect justice though that Jackie kind of does it. And that's the one thing that I do like about rewatching this series is that you go, oh, okay, I get it. So I think that was definitely one of the first cool little things when I was rewatching. Yeah.
And how can the policeman not know it was Claire? Especially when she's asking the questions at the end of it, is the guy okay?
Jackie could care less.
Jackie's just got her little cheerleaders doing jumps around her.
And so we do stick with the story a little bit because shortly after that, they're out there on the football field and she gets her neck snapped by football, basically.
She does the old, what is the film? The Exorcist.
I was like, that was hilarious. My God, the special effects are so bad looking back.
And just no one else saw apart from the one person who knows what's wrong. Like, she's got powers.
I like the part he's like, you're definitely not dainty.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's like, I'm
God.
dainty enough.
Stop.
Brody had like no game. Like some of his lines that he's talked, like some of the lines that he tries on Claire, are just eye roll worthy. Like, oh, I've got sensitive hands. But yeah, sorry, just going off on a tangent.
I totally get it. I love that Latner, and I totally forgot he was in this, and that he becomes a douchebag. I totally forgot because he's done such a lot of other cool stuff since then. So I was just like, oh no, not the quintessential douchey quarterback. Oh, that upset me so bad in the rewatch this time around because he's done so much since then. So yeah, then we go back to Vegas and Nikki and Micah are back home, and she goes in her garage. She sees that the mess has been cleaned up, and she sees this keychain, and it's to the kick-ass Cadillac convertible. Jessica has taste in cars, is all that I can. Because that little Pinto or whatever, the little black thing she was driving, I was just like, ew. So she checks the glove box and she finds, this car has been registered to her name for several months. And then there's this little stupid heart-shaped note on the back. And it's a map. Yeah. And it leads her to the bodies of Linderman's thugs. So I was just like, okay. That's not weird and creepy at all.
Oh, the Sanders family.
I know. Oh, God. So we go back to New York where we see Peter is kind of sketching on his hospital bed and he's drawing the 2 stick figures. Now, okay, another little tiny just to be funny nitpick. You know how he starts off drawing stick figures and eventually he can like paint just as well as Isaac?
Oh, yeah.
It's just like pick one or the other. I think the stick figures are more funny.
Yeah, I thought that I imagine that the completed picture that he finished painting for Isaac, just as stick figures, that would have been so much better. Just like with big, massive, like broad strokes and just stick figures everywhere, just like
not another teen movie where she's throwing all the paint and then you pull back and stick figures. I would have died. Like, they needed a lot more humor in this because a lot of these parts are actually pretty dark. I don't remember the show being this dark, but a lot of them was actually kind of dark and twisted.
Maybe it's because the only thing that we remember is the only thing I remember essentially is most of the Hiro parts because he was just so different from the rest of them. He was like so upbeat and jolly for most of the time, and he actually enjoyed having powers, whereas the rest of them have that whole woe is me about it, which I never really understood.
Well, it's not that Peter didn't enjoy his powers. He just wanted to I felt like he wanted to be special, but he also wanted to be part of something. So he wanted to find other people. He knew his brother deep down was lying to him. You know what I mean? But he just wanted to be like a hero, but he was just such a mopey wet blanket going about it that it was just like, oh, thank God we have Hiro. Like, just thank God we had that. But the other thing about it is that we see the little symbol that has.
Oh, we see that everywhere. I love it.
Yeah, and so we see this all through the first season, and we really don't get into it until the second season. But I do like that they kind of because when Jessica turns into Nikki, her tattoo have Helix, and that's how you know the difference.
It's like the whole Fringe thing. In like every episode, there's an observer for most of the first couple of seasons, and that's the kind of like nice little things like that. Kind of make me want to, it makes you want to rewatch to try and see the ones that are hidden more in the background.
So his mother comes in and she reveals that his father was quote unquote clinically depressed and actually it wasn't a heart attack, it was suicide. Yeah. And she thinks he's having the same problem. Like, poor Peter, all his family does is lie to him. And it sucks that they straight up say that Nathan was loved more than he was. Like, that is crazy. As a parent, I don't care how old your kid is. As a parent, you never admit that. You take that to your grave with you. Then we kind of go back to Isaac's studio, and it's unlocked, and we see, like, the paintings, and it's some unfinished pages from Ninth Wonders. And then he sees the trail of blood to a gun, and it's Isaac's body. So this is how we don't know. Like, we didn't know at the time it was, like, what happens in the end. So it's just like, what? Why didn't they just do it from the first pilot? They were going to do it this way. I remember yelling that.
Of course, being Hiro, he has to pick up the gun, of course.
Then, so the police storm in. And then we cut. I was like, no, stay with the scene. That's when we cut to LA, and he's securing the crime scene, and he complains to his coworker that he'd rather be helping the investigation than, you know, basically keeping people away. And I was like, aw, I wanted the Odessa conversation again. I did. I remember thinking that because that was funny. He's like, what's Odessa? Oh, a small town in Texas and also in Russia. I was like, it's the Ukraine, but whatever. Close enough. But anyway, so we see Clea DuVal's FBI agent. No, it's not her. It's the other lady with the red hair. I forget her name. But you know, the other.
Yeah.
At first. And then she takes over his case.
The main one.
So he's like, they talk about how he couldn't be a detective, not SWAT this time, but a detective because his scores are just grossly. But yeah, so he hears Molly, well, the little girl calling out to him. And so he's wandering through the place and he hears Clea DuVal's Audrey Hanson say, oh, it's Barstow all over again. I know Siler's responsible. It's just like, oh, how convenient.
Yeah.
It's just how convenient. So he follows her and finds her under this small hidden room, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see what you did there.
And it's just the whole time when he's talking about it, and it's just like people were like you couldn't hear her whispering, and I'm like, even when he's talking to her, and he's obviously reading her mind, like he doesn't see like her voice, like her mouth moving, and he never puts it like, you know, two and two together. But, yeah.
I don't even know how he got to be a regular cop directing traffic at that. Like this first couple of episodes with Parkman, it was just kind of brutal. Like they finally wisened the guy up a little bit, but not much. Fred Grunberg always kind of gets those goofy kind of characters.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to New York with Mohinder and Eden, and they're talking about the research, and he sees the messages, and he hears that conversation between his father and Siler. And I was like, oh, he doesn't listen to the tape. Like, that just, man, Siler still felt really underdeveloped at this point, too, though. Because it's not the same voice as Zachary Quinto on the phone.
No. I remember thinking that, like, on the rewatch, I was like, oh, is it? No, it's not. Definitely not.
So, yeah. So he hears that, and then Eden tells him about the lizard, and his name is Mohinder.
Yeah, that's not nice, is it?
That was weird. But
yeah.
Okay. And so they find the USB flash drive.
Oh, which they call the portable hard drive. I remember hearing them say, like, it's a portable hard drive, and I was like, that's a USB. But yeah, I think the only reason they had the lizard in the whole thing was just as a kind of way for them to find the portable hard drive, like, easily. But yeah.
But he plugs it in, and then the logarithm begins. And then there's, of course, the symbol between the blank spaces. I'm like, there's that symbol again. What the hell does it mean? So he thinks he's found a way to locate the evolved humans, but it's really just the first step. So we get back to Matt, and Audrey's just like, what the hell? How did you know this? And she's like, you did you set this all up? How do you know the name Siler? Take him in. Classic misunderstanding. She's like, you guys couldn't try a little harder? Just
straight.
A little?
She's just the way she straight up manhandles him as well, and he allows it.
So we go back to Clay and Nikki's Cadillac, and they're out in the desert. And who goes looking for dead bodies with their child in the car?
Yeah, and who buries people with their child in the car, just asleep in the car?
They were in the trunk. So then Claire returns home, and he tells her he's contacted the adoption agency, and she's gonna meet her birth parents. And then we see that he's watching the video that Zach made of Claire testing her powers.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? They could have actually ended the episode right there, and I've just been like, what? And then we see Nathan meets Peter on the roof of a building, and he's like, you're going to tell me what happened in that alley, or I'm going to jump. That's
some way to get the truth out of your brother, just to threaten your life again.
Especially with Nathan. Like, he'll be like, fine, jump, I don't care. Like, that's just how he comes off a lot of times. Although we find out later that he has a little bit of a heart. 2 times too small, not 3. So he finally tells him, and then the same story. And then he gets upset, and then he tells him the truth, and then he thinks that he's lying. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways, Peter.
Yeah.
But he finds himself hovering a few feet above the rooftop.
Yeah.
And then you realize that was the sketch.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was really, really cool, yeah.
And then we go, finally, the last scene of this episode. We're in Isaac's studio. The two detectives are asking Hiro about Isaac's murder. And they bring in the Japanese detective Furukawa. And he's like, I teleported myself from Tokyo, like Star Trek.
Yeah.
And he tells them that if he can call Ando, he'll be able to straighten everything out. And then Ando's like, dude, we've been looking for Hiro for 5 weeks. And Hiro's like, no, October 2nd. And then they flash down the newspaper that says November 8th. And then the headline, of course, Petrelli wins in a landslide.
Yep.
And then an explosion happens. And then we see him back in the subway where we started the episode.
And yeah, that's kind of where we go from there. Like, that's essentially...
That's our timeline.
Yeah, that's essentially what's going to happen what they've got to try and stop. It's essentially the first season in a nutshell, like what they've got to do, what they've got to stop. I think it's great. I think it was a great way to end.
Yeah, like it gives us, like, it's weird that we have the second episode and basically we have our timeline, we know the big event.
Yeah.
And it's like, now we just have to find the rest of our heroes, you know?
Yeah.
They're going to go on this journey. And we got some new things, like, introduced. Of course, the logarithm, the symbol. We get our first Marvel reference.
Yeah.
And the first appearance of the New York Chronicle, which shows up a ton.
I think there was also a good thing about is the way that I think it happened in the first episode, but it carries on throughout this and the next episode, and that it's the whole kind of crossing over of like our heroes, like, you know, and when they're listening to the phone call, like Nathan Petrelli's left a message about, you know, voting for him, and then that happens again in like the second, third, and fourth. Like, it happens quite a lot. Like, you know, even though there are all these people who are kind of all over the place, they still kind of have, you know, they say that everyone's connected, I believe, in sometime in like this episode or the next, and it kind of shows that happening throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
I think it's Nathan. No, I think it's the next episode where he's like, the world doesn't work that way, but apparently in the Tim Crean universe, it does. Yeah. And I think that's why, like, I had, like, when, like I said, when Touch came out, and it was talking about the Red Strings of Fate, and I was like, maybe he'll get it a little bit better than the last time he tried this.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely what this smacks of. Like, it was cool in theory, but, like, some people never connected the way that you kind of expected them to.
Yeah.
That was my only thing. Like, I just feel like we could have had some better character interactions down the line, especially in season 3. Things got so disjointed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you had to, gun to your head, had to grade it, what would you give it?
I'd give it another, what did I say the last one was, a B? So I'd probably give a B again. It wasn't anything, you know, I think I gave it a C. It's, you know, it's kind of, it's developing, but I wasn't really that invested in the show at the time. And yeah, same again now, like, because I know where it's going, probably I'd still give it a C, because I wasn't really into this until a couple of episodes away, so I'd give it a C, yeah. How about you?
I'll give it the good old B-. I see the structure. I appreciate what Tim was writing. Like, I totally get what he was going for. I thought the direction was great. Like, it was just these very subtle things that, like, it could have very easily tried to feel, like, you know, gimmicky, but I think that I like the straightforward directorial execution. Like, it was nothing fancy. It's just, like, it just lets you take in the characters without being distracting, like a lot of comic book shows today are.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way. Well, with Arrow, I do, because that green filter drives me nuts. Do you have a favorite scene?
Actually, thinking about it now, no, not really. Sorry. Probably the whole hovering thing, which I thought was quite cool. How about you?
I think I really liked when Eden met Mohinder that first time in the hallway.
Actually, no, I'm going to change mine. It's going to be the end. It's going to be the cliffhanger. It's going to be the New York exploding. And I'm not saying that because I want New York to explode. I just think it was a great kind of thing, and it kind of sets the tone and sets where everyone's going from like the end of the second episode. And I think that's something that Heroes did quite well, is the cliffhanger for at least the first couple of episodes. They set it up so that, you know, you had to kind of watch the next episode to figure out what was going on, and the cliffhanger was a great way to get everyone back, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. Do you have any lines that stuck out in your head?
No, sorry. You?
It's Eden Mohinder even says something like, he told me he was being watched. I thought he was eccentric, Mohinder. I like that they didn't use the word paranoid. Like, I feel like for all the dialogue was very straightforward. It was never anything flashy, but every now and then it was very funny.
Yeah. It was it was also Mohinder meet Mohinder. That was quite funny, yeah.
Poor Mohinder. But at least he gets a little bit of a resolution with his father. So yeah. I know tons of trivia about this episode.
You go with it. You let me know. Go.
Okay, so I think my favorite piece of trivia is when Hiro says it's October 2nd, 2006. That's the day that this episode actually aired. And I think it's the only one where that actually happens in the whole series. I like how Hiro was a part of the Mary Marvel Marching Society, which is a little impossible because it got disbanded in 1971. And Hiro was very young in 2006. But if you read the graphic novel The Crane, which continues his story about what happened when he returned from Tokyo, I think it's actually one of my favorite earlier graphic novels.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to read The Crane?
Yeah. I quite enjoyed it as well. But yeah, carry on with
6 pages.
Yeah.
Simple, sweet, and then the Crane also shows back up a little later when he meets Charlie, so I like that too.
Mm.
And then the second part of the graphic novel that has to deal with this particular episode is Elle's first assignment part 2, where she's kind of it shows how Mr. Bennett got the tape from Zach.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's the thing about these graphic novels, because they went kind of backwards and forwards when they introduced the new characters of the Bishops. But those are great novels. What else did we learn in this episode? We learned a ton. We learned Jessica's address, her registration, all that cool stuff. Like, if you're into that minutia, like I am.
And like Isaac's address as well.
Which I don't think is an actual real street. In New York, at least. I never really bothered to check on that. This whole time living here, I've never bothered to check.
Well.
So yeah, that's about does it for episode 2. Don't look back. Okay, so if you want to get in touch with Primatech Files, be sure to like us on Facebook.
Yeah, I've got one. We're building it. But yeah.
Oh, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's in a work in progress. But, just like it anyway. It's under Primatech Files again.
Okay, Facebook.com/Primatech Files.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Twitter at
Primatech Files. I'm making it easy for everyone.
And our email.
I think that's going to be primatechfiles@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts about these first couple of episodes, we're at number 2 or number 3. You just send us any thoughts about them, and we'll hopefully read them on air.
Definitely will. So that about does it for us here at Primatech Files. Please be sure to reach out and touch us.
I'm on Twitter at Ricky J Diaz, RICKYJDIAZ or Z.
You can find me at Lilith Hellfire on Twitter. I am in the process of moving, so I'm not on Twitter this much, but too much right now. But right when the shows come back, March 16th, I'll be probably on Twitter. So download the podcast, save the world.